Hey everyone! So this week on Collected Edition, we're taking a look at Batman Elmer Fudd by Tom King and Lee Weeks. I'm Caden.
And I'm Dan.
I don't know, Dan, I had to convince you to read this book. I've been telling you about it for like 6 months. What did you think?
Well, okay, so you know that I'm not a big fan of crossovers in general, but I found myself not hating this one, and I liked it more than I thought I would.
Yeah, no, this one is okay. So when it came out, I dismissed it out of hand. Like I was reading Tom King's Batman, and I was like, whatever. It was middling for me. I was like, I do not care about how Batman is Bruce Wayne's suicide note, which was, the current storyline that was going on at the time. I was like, so try hard, whatever. And this book came out. I threw it out of hand. I think my comic book retailer put it in my box, and I said, "Get that out of there." And then I came back a month later. It was sitting on a shelf, and it was selling for like $20. And I was like,
Oh.
so when I checked it out, I was like, "Why is this as good as as it is?"
Yeah, I mean, it definitely nails that noir vibe, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and just the combining the gritty backstreets feel with the Elmer Fudd accent is it's a flavor all its own.
Well, and I guess that's the thing, everybody, is the narration of this style. The main character of this book, actually, is just Elmer Fudd. And he's the one who's narrating it. And if you think King pulls his punches, he doesn't. It's in the cartoon dialect the entire time. It's with his speech impediment.
This may be the issue with the most W's ever. I would stake a bet on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no kidding. Well, like he puts it in there even when like it doesn't make sense for it to be in the speech impediment. Like I tried to say like the way he says forget, I can't like put the W in there. I'm like forget. Like I can't nail it. But I guess the best part about this book for me is I conned my 400 level like professional writing class into reading this book. Like I gave it to my professor, and he was so like, and keep in mind, like, ladies and gentlemen, like I gave him a series of real comic books. I gave him like Sheriff of Babylon, which is another book by Tom King that deals like it's about the war in the Middle East, and it's drawn from Tom King's own experiences to some degree. And I was like, yes, this is a legitimate piece of art. I'll give it to my professor, and he'll be like, wow, and he'll love it. And as a joke, I gave him Batman Elmer Fudd, and he was like, that one.
That's the one.
And let me tell you, my class friggin' hated it.
Mission
uh,
accomplished.
so I got the story of it is pretty simple. Like it is a noir, hard boiled, rain slicked detective story. Or I guess in this case, Elmer Fudd is like a contract killer, and he finds out that the dame that he has been interested in has been killed. So he goes to, and of course, Tom King doesn't just limit this to just Elmer Fudd. It's the entire Looney Tunes universe.
Ton
So
of
he goes,
cameos here. Yeah.
yeah, I think every significant Looney Tunes character gets a moment. So he goes to Porky's bar. Of course, Porky the pig is a human in this universe. All the Looney Tunes characters are humans. Porky owns a bar in Gotham. He goes in. Of course, it's all the Looney Tunes characters, and they've been like Gothamified. Uh, I think my favorite cameo is the singing frog.
I love that. Singing Frog was a favorite of mine forever.
Same. Yeah, it's legitimately I think my favorite like Looney Tunes bit. But we have like not Martian Manhunter. Okay. So I guess a little bit more background to this. They did a whole swath of Looney Tunes DC crossovers, and Tom King, he had a little bit of time in his schedule, I guess, and he calls up Dan DiDio, the publisher of DC, and he's like, "Hey, I want to do my Killing Joke. I want to do like my like transcendental, definitive Batman one-shot comic." And they're like, "Oh, okay, we'll get back to you." And then they call him back, and I guess Dan DiDio could not stop laughing on the phone because he's like, "So Batman Elmer Fudd question mark?" And so they did like Martian Manhunter meets Marvin the Martian. I think it was Wonder Woman, Tasmanian Devil, and like Lex Luthor, Porky Pig. Like everybody got one. uh, so we go into Porky's bar. So, and we meet all the Gotham equivalents of the Looney Tunes characters. So, like Marvin the Martian is a crackpot, like homeless person that's talking about his death ray. Uh, Tweety Bird is just gross. He, you know, probably my least favorite use of I think I saw a putty tat.
Yeah.
uh, but you know, in Gotham it works. And Bud suspects that Bugs the Bunny, who is, of course, is just a human with buck teeth drinking carrot juice, alone at the bar, killed his lover. And it's revealed to be Silver St. Cloud, which I know you have no context for this, Daniel, but she is a long-standing Batman girlfriend. Like, she was the girlfriend of the 70s.
Okay. All right.
And more importantly, she was the one that left Bruce. Like, you know, I think in a lot of
Oh,
ways, she's
yeah.
the one that got away because she was the one who figured out he was Batman, and she was the one who decided to leave him. It was not, you know, like typically it's like, oh, the mission gets in the way. You know, I can't have it. And he's the one that Silver St. Cloud is the girlfriend that in a lot of Batman stories, Batman's willing to abandon the mission for.
Okay.
And apparently, after she left Bruce, she got with Elmer Fudd.
Yeah. Her old fuddy duddy.
Yeah, and he calls her what? His Whittle Cloud.
His widow quowed. Yeah.
And you know he didn't find a body, but he found what is it? Her blood in a carrot. You know,
Yeah.
Bugs
Blood
left
covered
his,
carrot, puddle of blood. Yeah.
you know, Bugs his calling card, and he goes to Bugs and he's like, "Why would you want to get, you know, revenge against me? Of course, Fudd's gonna blow him away. When you could get, you know, the guy who hired me to do this, and it's Bruce Wayne."
And I love this little conversation they have at the bar too, right? Like it's so like fatalistic, right? And
Oh,
like
it's so
and
noir driven.
yeah, yeah. Fudd turns to him and says, "There's a poet at the end of all our stories." Like
Well,
what?
and well, like freaking Bugs gets to get in it, like it's all noir, like fatalistic dialogue, but they're also working in like Bugs's own like dialogue. He's like, oh man, what does he say?
He says, I think I took a wrong turn at
Oh,
Albuquerque," right?
Albuquerque, yeah. And he's like, have you ever been to Albuquerque? No.
No.
But either way, you know, he's like, Bruce Wayne is the one who did this, so why don't you go get him? And this is like this panel layout here where it's just Elmer Fudd in his head, like saying Bruce Wayne, Bruce Wayne, and then he gets so worked up that the lisp drops. It's the only moment in the book where it's Bruce Wayne. He's so upset. It's just awesome for me. I'm like, this is so dumb. I never would think that like Elmer Fudd is a badass, but
Right.
here he is. So Fudd works himself up into a fervor, and he bails to go whack Bruce Wayne. And on his way out, you know, Bugs laughs to himself, and of course, you get the line, "Ain't I a stinker?" And we get some flashbacks along the way in classic noir fashion where we see that St. Cloud can't commit to Fudd because, you know, there's that one man she's holding on to, and it's Bruce Wayne. So it's again just layering it on. It's like it's
Yeah,
so
they already have
melodramatic.
this conflict in the background, right?
Where he's like, no, she's like the only thing preventing me from having her is him. And it's so melodramatic and it's so cliche, but it's done so well that I just love it. So Fudd calls in his contacts and he gets a fake limousine. He drives up to Wayne Manor where Bruce is having a classic Bruce Wayne soiree, and he knocks on the door. Alfred answers and he says, "My client lost their phone. Can I return it?" And I this is the one point in the story where I think Alfred would be a little bit more cautious in a regular Batman story, but you know, it's a crossover. We need to get it happening. And that's the other thing is this book is so efficient. It, you know,
Yeah, yeah, super tight. Like, and there are times where it seems like, okay, we've compressed a lot of motivation here, but the setting is the motivation, right? And
mhm.
you know, I think we're just supposed to kind of go with that, and I think it works.
Well, and then we get Fudd's internal dialogue. And the other thing is we get this like background to Fudd, which is also great. You know, it's very lean, very concise, but he's like, I didn't grow up in the fancy city. I grew up in the country, the dirt of the country, and we ate what we hunted. in duck season we ate duck, in wabbit season we ate wabbit. And then he says, now it's Playboy season. And he
Right.
just,
Yeah.
he goes right up to Bruce, whips the shotgun out of his, his overcoat, or what is it? He whips the shotgun out of his trench coat and just blows him away. And it's Bruce, so I think it's safe to assume like this dude is not going anywhere without like some bulletproof whatever. But either way, everybody freaks out. Fudd bails, and we see him taking off in the limo, and then we just get the sweet shot of Batman overhead. And I
Just
don't
like
know.
that. Yeah.
Lee Weeks' art, fantastic in
Yeah.
this book,
Yeah.
and
Agreed.
to me it feels like Batman Year One. In a modern way. It's using kind of that same limited color palette that
Hmm.
Miller and David Mazzucchelli is using, and I think Lee Weeks' art kind of appropriates it in its own way while still being distinct. But he goes back to St. Cloud's. Does he go back to his apartment or St. Cloud's apartment? I assumed it was St. Cloud's, but I guess I didn't think about it until
I
this.
thought it was his because he was starting to
Yeah,
unwind a little bit, like it was his place,
yeah, no,
Plus, I think it was a little more run down. I kind of associated
yeah,
it more with him than with St. Cloud.
no, you're right. It's his apartment. Either way, he puts his gun down. He picks it up because he hears something outside the door, and he looks out. And we see Batman behind him,
That
and
this scene actually, like, this is probably my favorite scene in the book, just
yeah,
for how unexpected and well done the whole thing is.
well, because and this is what any good crossover should do. No matter what level the players are at, we should get them to have like equal jabs on each other. And so of course, Fudd just casually puts his shotgun behind his shoulder, nothing's out there. But then we see him pull the trigger because Batman's behind him, and he gets the drop on Batman, which is just so cool. And of course they duke it out, and Batman is able to talk to Fudd long enough to be like, okay, like, well, I guess no. Fudd is the one who freaks out. He's like, he deserved it, or I can't even say deserved it. Either way, Fudd is like, he deserved it. He deserved to die. And Batman, of course, gets a classic Batman line where he's like, no one deserves to die. And he's able to talk him down long enough to be like, no, I know definitively that Bruce Wayne didn't kill him. And also, you didn't kill him. But
He's fine.
Wayne didn't kill St. Cloud. We need to do, some investigating. And I love this scene where Batman tries to intimidate Fudd and he goes, hmm. And Fudd responds with, hmm. And there's just like look of shock on Batman's face. Like,
That's my
like,
line.
this guy's like too tough for me to get into. But either way, Batman and Fudd, we get the classic crossover deal where they fight each other. Now they've teamed up. They go back to Porky's,
But
and
I love the little aside of Fudd warning Batman off of this place. This is a hard place for hard men.
and he's like, "Good." Well, and then there's just
So edgy.
this is there's this amazing scene where they're at Porky's. Batman kicks in the door, and it says, "My name is Elmer Fudd. He is the Batman, and we are hunting wabbits." Well, they instead of Fudd doing the "I'm hunting wabbits," hey, like laugh. It's "I'm hunting whatever." Shh. Which I think is the one part of the book where I'm like, yeah, like you could have dropped it and nobody noticed, but you know what? It fits with the theme of the book. I dig
It
it.
does. It does. Yeah.
And they of course they don't just get to fight bugs, they get to fight everybody. So Yosemite Sam runs up and he starts like, oh well, we talks to Batman, and he's like, we don't take too kindly to varmints here. And Batman just knocks him in the face. And this is the best part for me, is in the middle of all the commotion, the frog starts singing. At the beginning, the guy's like trying to like do it, and in all the commotion, the frog just belts it out. And I'm like, yes, while nobody's paying
Yes,
attention,
that is how it would be for real.
it hits not only the Batman elements, it hits the Looney Tunes. There's these little gags in there as well that just make it work.
Yeah.
Oh man. Something that I was pointed out to me is that when like Sylvester the cat like launches himself them. He looks like a cat, you know.
Yeah.
And
Almost saber tooth kind of, you know.
Mhm. Another testament to the art. Uh, but either way, you know, once they've ran through all of the characters, they get to Bugs, and he turns to him and he said, you know, "What's up, docs?" And they're about to pummel him. When they're about to pummel him, they're asking, "Why did you kill Silver St. Cloud?" And then we hear this voice say, "He didn't." And the reveal is it's Silver St. Cloud is alive. She's got the carrot like a cigarette from a noir movie. And she reveals that she set the entire thing up for the two to interact with each other.
So yeah, it was like a buddy cop blind date,
Yeah.
right? Set up by the lady who wanted something for them to console themselves with when she dropped out of their lives, right?
Yeah, because what does she say? Like, she left both of them because of the danger, and she figured, you know, since they're both dangerous, they'd find something to do together.
Right.
And of course, you know, she whips out her umbrella and she walks out into the night like a classic, you know, femme fatale. And you know, Bruce and Fudd and Bugs are all left at the bar alone together, and they watch her as she leaves. And then Bugs turns to Porky and he says, "A carrot juice, please." And then Fudd says, "Make it two." And then Batman runs up and says, "Three."
Make it three. Yeah, let's belly up to the bar.
And King wraps this up in the best way possible. You know, Porky goes to pour the carrot juice, and of course he runs out because that's all, folks.
That's all, folks. Yeah.
And that ends the, I guess that ends the DC part of it, because each of these have a DC version and a Looney Tunes version of the crossover. And I don't know, like, I think it's great. I have no clue why my classmates hated this. Unless I'm like, okay, do you guys just not like fun? One big complaint that I saw, and this was so funny, this guy was wearing a Batman t-shirt as he went on this like tirade. He was like, "I just don't believe that Batman would sit down with these goons and just have a drink." And I'm like,
Right.
it's
Hang on.
it's clearly just like emulate, you know, like, okay, you're just missing out on the noir of it all. And I've seen Batman, you know, have a laugh at the Joker. If he can do that, like, you know, it's clearly emulating the end of the Killing Joke where they're laughing with each other. And if they could sit down and have a drink, like, it's no big deal, especially when they've both dated the same women. It's not like they have this. Like, I don't know what was stuck in that guy's craw. But then we get like the Looney Tunes crossover. That one's pretty straightforward. We get the classic duck season, rabbit season joke, but Batman shows up instead of Daffy. They go back and forth. It ends with Batman eventually deciding it's Robin season, and he brings out all the Robins, and Elmer goes chasing after them, and Bugs and Batman walk off into the sunset with Batman implying he's going to introduce him to the Joker.
Right. Yeah.
"I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine. I think you and him will really hit it off," is what he
There you go.
says.
Yeah.
But this is again something my classmates like complained about, was the fact that Bugs Bunny was able to get the drop on Batman and like make him look like a maroon, which I'm like, okay, if that's what you're complaining about, you've clearly just like, you don't get it then. Like, you haven't watched enough Looney Tunes to know that Bugs Bunny gets the drop on everybody. That's just what he does,
Right. Yeah.
you know.
Everybody gets to do their thing in these things, right? And
Hmm.
I think there's this, I don't know if just to kind of look back on it philosophically, right? There's this temptation, I think, with comics to either dismiss them or to take them far too seriously, right?
Hmm.
And stuff like this clearly says you have to take this where it is, right? it's
Yeah.
it's at the middle ground. You can dismiss it as not being art, or whatever. You can take any of those classic dismissive tactics for it, but in the end it's a piece of standalone work that if you have any grounding in either of the two worlds that come together, then you have to make some accommodations that allow them to exist as equals, right?
Yeah.
And so the art, I think, the real balance is in which pieces of those you choose to take, primary focus at any one point. And
Hmm.
like I say, I'm not really a big fan of that in general, but I got to respect the choices that were made in this one. It was very well done.
Yeah, well, and it's on top of it, I I think Batman at this point is one of my favorite characters to read. You know, but at the same time, I'm really frustrated with how Batman is pedestalized in a lot of ways. Like it's like, oh, he can't. The fact that people get upset that he could go toe to toe with Elmer Fudd, or the fact that Elmer Fudd could go toe to toe with Batman. I'm like, yeah, he's just a guy in a costume. Like he like this entire this concept of Bat God is very frustrating to me, and I think this really does a good job of being like, no, like this is what it would look like if we were to take the soul of these Looney Tunes characters and put them into Gotham. They would be an equal match for Batman, and that's perfectly fine, and that's perfectly okay because you know what? It makes for an engaging story, and that's that I want.
Yeah, yeah, and I think another example of that is there's a pretty common trope in Sherlock Holmes lore, right? To take Sherlock
Hmm.
Holmes out of his environment, or in London, whatever time that was, and put him in the far future, or the far
Yeah,
past, or some alternate universe, right? And
or I mean,
and
team him up with Batman.
I'm sure that's happened. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, like, once you take Sherlock Holmes out of his particular domain that he knows so well, it's not like he's incompetent, right? But
Hmm.
so much of what he did was grounded in the specifics of London at that time.
Hmm.
The quality of the cigarette ash, the kinds of mud that made up the territory around, right? Like so much of his specific knowledge was geared towards solving problems in that domain. When you throw something in there that's totally, unexpected, then he's going to be less capable than when he's on his own in his own element, right? And it's the same thing when you introduce Elmer Fudd into a Batman comic and you give him his own competencies. Those are going to clash and they're going to be unfamiliar, and so both of them are back-footed a little bit.
Well, and I don't know if we'll ever do Batman versus Predator because I've forced you to read it already. But I think that's a great example of it in the sense that it's something that's completely unfamiliar to Batman. He has to adapt to it, and that's what makes the story interesting. And as a result, he is eventually able to defeat it. But if Batman were omni capable and omni, confident in every interaction he had, like who would care? Like
Right? Yeah.
that's not a story. That's not how story structure works. Like power scalers, they could just forget about it. But yeah, no, like I don't know. This book is great. A lot of people will hail it as like top 10 Batman stories, and
Wow. Yeah.
I think it's and I think it's because it's one issue, it's succinct, and I think in a lot of ways this is what a comic book crossover should be doing.
Okay. All right.
Is
Well, I'll
I
hold that as a reference then for when we do others because
Yeah,
I don't have a lot of
I
context.
I think this is the top end of it. Is it's easily accessible. You don't really need to understand, and I think it helps because Looney Tunes and Batman are just two pillars of like pop culture.
Mm.
But I do know that this book has been reprinted several times. I don't think the Looney Tunes people were super happy with these crossovers. And they quickly were like, yeah, we're not doing any more of these. But Batman Elmer Fudd is the one that's celebrated enough that it's been in print essentially ever since it came out. They just
Yeah.
released like a oversized, well, I don't know if it's oversized. They just released a hardcover version of it that I
No
need to
way.
pick up. So I don't
Wow.
know. That's Batman Elmer Fudd. That's all, folks.
See ya. I don't know. We kind of touched on. There was one actually. I remember there was one non-human character in here. In the final bar spread where they bust in the door and the two of them are there together walking into the bar. There's that mouse off in the left corner in the mid or the left side in the middle, and I didn't know who that was. I was wondering, if you knew who that was.
Man, the mouse in the, is it when they first,
No, it's the second bar
oh,
spread where they walk in.
I see. It
I,
almost looks like, oh, I just caught oh man, what's the I just caught Speedy Gonzalez in the corner. uh he's got a mustache and a sombrero. That's the only
right,
reason I know
of
it.
course.
I don't know. It almost looks like, I don't know. Is it Mighty Mouse? Like, but I don't
It
know.
does. It did kind of look like that. I thought initially, I'm like, oh, is it Danger Mouse? But it's not Danger Mouse. I looked that up, and yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't place him, but I thought it
I
was an interesting, really subtle cameo.
yeah. That is